Welcome to the video. In this video, I'd very quickly like to talk about radio range. Now, this is a question that we get an awful lot from new pilots, particularly around the videos where we're doing a radio review. Very commonly we get asked, how far can I fly with this? And this video is to answer those questions, because what I'm doing at the moment is spending the same 10 minutes giving the same kind of response. So hopefully this will help new pilots understand what the art of the possible is, but also what the art of the legally possible is as well, because those are two slightly different things. First of all, let's talk about what will actually affect the range, or how far away you can fly and how high you can fly with a radio controlled aircraft. First of all is the radio power. It's actually different in different places. This is one of the very basic things that makes it really tricky to answer that question. In the EU, the 2.4 gigahertz is 100 milliwatts maximum power. In the USA, those lucky guys have access to 200 milliwatts. Twice the power. So of course, with more milliwatts, more transmitting power allows the signal to go a little bit further. Second thing to think about is the sensitivity of the receivers. Not all receivers are created equal. Some of the manufacturing on some of the cheaper receivers that I've seen has meant that the range is a little bit more limited. I'm thinking particularly of some of the recent FR Sky receivers that I've tested, the clone ones, not the real FR Sky ones. A lot of the clone FR Sky receivers are not particularly well made, and they're great for park flying and close in work, but I wouldn't trust them past a couple of 100 feet. Next thing is the positioning of the antenna on the model and also on the radio. Let's talk about the model first. A lot of the receivers that we're using at the moment have these long whip style antennas, and they're perfect to route the antennas externally to the vehicle. Now, the 2.4 gigahertz radio frequency that we use to control a lot of the vehicles that we're flying these days doesn't have a lot of penetrating power. So another example of a 2.4 gigahertz system that you'll be familiar with is things like a Wi-Fi signal. So a Wi-Fi signal can either be 2.4 or 5.8 gigahertz, but if we just play with the 2.4 for the moment, you'll know that if you walk around any decent sized property, as soon as you walk behind a wall or an obstruction, then the Wi-Fi signal gets really poor. And that's exactly the same kind of technology that we're using here in the radio. And also, it depends where your radio antenna is as well. Those kind of rubber ducky whip antennas that are on the top of your radio have more sensitivity to the side than the top, and that's typically why they bend to the side so that you have better reception down the field. So the relationship of the model to the radio also plays a part here too. How noisy the radio environment where you fly makes a big difference. You will probably be able to fly safer farther away in an environment where there aren't all the Wi-Fi signals and the radio towers and everything else banging away, making an awful lot of noise in the band that you're using to fly your craft. So if you're in a very remote area where you've got no phone signal, then you're probably going to get away with a slightly further away distance than if you're flying in a metropolitan area where there's lots of signal and noise and affect how far away you could fly. Last thing to talk about is the resilience of the radio link technology. It plays a little part here. If it can hear the signal, if you occasionally get a little glitch because of a little problem, then most radio systems can repair themselves from that. They use frequency hopping or they have error correction, and they can kind of get you out of trouble. That kind of technology won't extend the range, but it will mean that you can fly safer within the range that's available to you. So those are the kind of reasons why when I get asked the question, how far away can I fly, it's pretty impossible to answer, because it depends what equipment you've got, how it's set up, where you're flying, how you're flying, what you're flying. But let's talk about in practice. In practice, most good quality radios will be able to fly the model well beyond the legal range. I'm talking about 2.4 gigahertz radios here. Legal range is typically going to be a half to a third of the maximum range of any decent radio. In ideal conditions, I'd say you might be able to get away with about 1 to 1.5 kilometers range with a 2.4 gigahertz radio, but with a UHF system, something like the TBS Crossfire, you can get multiple kilometers. But again, that really relates on whether or not you are legally allowed to fly those distances, because in a lot of instances you're not. In many places, legal ranges like 400 feet are in place, and you're not also allowed to fly higher than that as well. And actually 400 feet is quite a lot of room to fly in, and even some quite large models start to get pretty small for line of sight in 400 feet. And in FPV, if you're flying with your spotter, you can cover a lot of ground in that 400 feet bubble as well. So do be aware of that. Just because a system might be able to allow you to fly 1 to 1.5 kilometers doesn't mean that you can or that you should. It just means that there's a lot of additional headroom, so that the area that you do fly in, you are flying within an area of really good clean signal, and you're in full control of your model. So hopefully that helps explain it to you. The answer in a couple of sentences is, with a 2.4 GHz system, in ideal conditions you might get up to 1.5 kilometers, maybe a touch more if you're very, very lucky, but in practice you won't legally be able to get anywhere near that range. Thank you for taking the time to watch that video. There are lots of other videos on the channel, and they're carefully ordered into playlists, so you may find that there are other videos on this same subject that you can go and watch. So I would recommend going into the playlist area of Painless360 YouTube channel and looking around and seeing what there is. You never know what you might find. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and happy flying.